mother of all life, element of all weather, the playground of the spirit. Water is in fact the only substance necessary to all life on earth.
Our water well acted like a vacuum cleaner, sucked it all in, carried it to our homes. And these were chemicals that you can't taste or see or smell when it's in your water.
We now have been faced with health problems. We have been forced out of our home, and we still are not getting no help.
Nobody seems to be protecting their water unless we can protect it ourselves.
Hi, I'm Susan Sarandon. Some of us are learning the hard way just how valuable our water is and how easily it can be contaminated and threaten our very lives. What can we do about it? And how can we as individuals and communities make sure that industry, government, even our own activities are not ruining our water? Some people still think the government can protect their water and keep it pure and safe. But today, we'll hear from people who found out that the government can't do it alone. And as a result, they had to act to safeguard their drinking water. Sierra Club members in Dayton, Ohio became concerned about the quality of local drinking water when they discovered that industrial activity threatened their well field.
In 1983, the city hired consultants in order to expand their industrial park. The consultants came in and issued a report where they saw this industrial park, but it was right on top of our well field. And they came back and said, we have never, in any other city in the country, seen anything like this. These are two incompatible businesses, water and industry. They should not be together.
Typically, in the past, those facilities have located wherever they wanted to locate as long as they could meet local zoning restrictions. There has not been the attention to what would happen if there was a major incident that could cause a problem to the groundwater.
In the interim report of the Sierra Club, they described the situation whereas an accident that may occur at a facility such as Sherwood-Williams could cause detrimental damage to the groundwater. Unfortunately, that prediction came true.
It is just incredible out here. Dayton firefighters are saying this could be the largest fire ever in the history of Dayton. The flames are leaping hundreds of feet into the air. Firefighters on this 3-alarm inferno are already calling it a total loss. It's a Sherwin-Williams paint warehouse, and I was told that there are 1 million to 1.5 million gallons of paint thinner and paint inside. I have with me right now the chief from Dayton Fire Department, Chief Glenn Alexander. What can you tell me about this fire?
We're sitting on the edge of the well field here, so that we're balancing our concerns for using the water we have available versus the possible contamination of the water supply.
That would probably be just another spectacular fire if it wasn't on top of our well fields. You can't pour water on it because that's going to take it right into the groundwater. So the situation became one of letting it burn itself out, which took days, and there was contamination of the groundwater. It's documented.
We can't take the city of Dayton and move all the industry out of the city of Dayton just because a certain group feels that there's a risk factor.
The Ecolotech situation is a hazardous waste handling facility that is about 1,200 feet from city water wells. They're handling hundreds of thousands of gallons of hazardous waste extremely close to where our water's being pumped out of. There's really no regulation to move them out.
When businesses moved into these areas, they met every public requirement that was asked of them. What's happened is the public requirements have changed.
We have nothing protecting, geologically speaking, our drinking water, our groundwater, our water source. So we have to put something in place. And right now we see that as the Wellfield Protection Ordinance as the first step.
Dayton City Commission meeting is now called to order.
The Wellhead Protection Ordinance, which the people of Dayton work together to pass, will keep hazardous materials away from the water supply.
Chamber of Commerce needs to be commended for suggesting a regional water authority because the problem is too large for one municipality.
Citizens have been very important in keeping things moving. I think they've been important in educating elected officials and public servants.
But the Sierra Club found the education has to be ongoing.
Past activities that we thought were gone because of some education that we've done continue to occur, such as placing an industrial park right across the river from operating city wells. When you think about the implications of one 55-gallon drum of hazardous material can contaminate 12 billion gallons of drinking water beyond acceptable levels, just a drum can cause a lot of problems. We're fighting this industrial park. We don't think it should be there, and we don't think it has any right to be where it's at.
You pollute an aquifer and it stays polluted. I mean, the water that is in the aquifer, for example, under us right now, came down in the form of rain about the time that Paul Revere was doing his famous ride. I mean, it's over 200 years old. So, you know, it's a treasure, if you will, that once destroyed, you just don't have it anymore.
How do contaminants end up in the water we drink? Let's look at the constant cycle that water moves in every minute of every day. The heat of the sun evaporates water from the land, the ocean, rivers, and ponds. It rises as a vapor, forming clouds. Eventually, it falls back to earth as rain, hail, sleet, or snow. Water enters the soil, trickling down into a layer of permeable rock called an aquifer. Aquifers hold this groundwater like a sponge. Rain and melting snow flush contaminants like chemical pesticides through the soil and into the groundwater. Once dissolved in the groundwater, these pollutants move very slowly, creating plumes. Plumes travel in unpredictable directions through underground water and may move undetected towards a community or private well. There it is drawn up, contaminating the water supply, endangering entire communities.
One of the important misconceptions that most of us, perhaps all of us, have is the fact that when we see a body of water that is quite crystal clear, doesn't have any taste, doesn't have any smell, that therefore the water is safe to drink. We have put a large amount of ammonium nitrate, which is a mild toxin, into this beaker full of water. The water here is crystal clear, has no taste and no odor, but it's certainly not safe to drink.
Some of the contamination sources are obvious, like the handling, storage, and disposal of toxic substances. Other threats, like forgotten underground gasoline tanks or leaky septic tanks, can be equally harmful. Even the disposal of everyday household products like motor oil and cleaning supplies can seep down into the soil and contaminate an aquifer. Groundwater is our largest single supply of water for drinking. Half of all Americans drink groundwater every day. Yet in nearly every state, there is serious contamination of our aquifers. Some people have paid a heavy price for drinking contaminated water without knowing it. Contaminated water can cause cancer, miscarriages, birth defects, and other illnesses. We're only now beginning to know how much harm is caused by contaminated water. People across the country are raising their voices and finding ways to work together to protect themselves and their water. Citizens in Santa Clara County, better known as Silicon Valley, found that health problems were linked to their water. Their response? to organize a campaign to pass strong laws to keep toxic substances out of their water.
Santa Clara Valley used to be nothing but orchards, and it was transformed in less than a decade into a mini Los Angeles, and people weren't used to thinking of themselves as having to safeguard their air and their water.
The high-tech silicon chip industry brought this tremendous growth, and with it an onslaught of toxic chemicals.
This myth that they had developed of that high-tech is a clean industry, it's not. It's a chemical handling industry. They rely on many, many different kinds of toxic chemicals.
We lived in a nice middle-class neighborhood in San Jose, California called Los Paseos, and we thought it was a real perfect neighborhood. We moved in there planning a family, and when I became pregnant with Juliana, we had had several problems occurring in the neighborhood. There had been several children who had been born with defects, and there had been some miscarriages, and I remember when she was born, my mom said, "Thank goodness she's healthy." And 2 months later, we found out she was just about ready to die from a severe congenital heart defect. She had emergency surgery, and they were able to save her life. The day she was 9 months old, I read in the Mercury News that we had had a water contamination of our drinking water system that no one had bothered to tell anybody about.
Fairchild has admitted that thousands of gallons of trichloroethane have leaked into the Los Paseos water supply. Officials are investigating.
We didn't know how long it had been going on. All we know was that the neighborhood had been suffering from all kinds of what I call birth tragedies for months and months and months, and Juliana was just one of them. And my phone rang off the hook for an entire week with people who had said, "Hey, I live three blocks from you, and my son was born with a heart defect also," or "I live around the corner from you, and I don't know you, and you don't know me, but my wife has had 2 miscarriages," or at the end of a week, I had a list of 72 names, which I turned over to the health department.
Virtually all the blue-chip high-tech firms have been involved, and each one of these sites represents an actual ongoing spill of chemicals that's gotten out into the environment and into the groundwater.
Why drink water that's contaminated? Nobody wants it. I mean, if you gave a person a choice between a glass of water that was contaminated and a glass that wasn't, I mean, believe me, I don't know that anybody in their right mind is going to choose one that's deliberately contaminated. And yet, in a way, we're doing that if we are becoming passive to the fact that we are losing our clean water.
Who would like one? Would you like one? I don't want any. Sir, would you like some? You can't give it away. What is it? It's water from the Silicon Valley.
Citizen action got results. They passed an ordinance that required strict regulation of underground storage tanks.
And what we found is that all the tanks leak. And so what we've done is to require that all the tanks have double containment, which is simply a tank within a tank concept, and to require strict monitoring so that you'll know if you do develop a leak, so you can then take steps immediately, not have to wait until it's too late.
Citizens worked on the state level to get Proposition 65 passed. This gives every Californian the right to know what chemicals are being processed and disposed of in their communities.
It said, we don't want any industry putting chemicals that cause cancer and birth defect into our water supply. And if you do, there's very serious penalties associated with it. And it actually describes and defines a list of chemicals that are well known to cause cancer and birth defects.
Among the citizens who campaigned to pass Proposition 65 was Lorraine Ross.
My daughter Juliana was born with a defective heart. She will survive, but children with cancer may not. Some experts say not to worry, but I know they're wrong.
Don't risk the health of our children. Get tough on toxics. Vote yes on 65.
I'm glad that we were able to bring something meaningful out of the situation beyond the fact that we suffered all these problems to our health.
Citizens on Cape Cod discovered that even a resort community with no major industry can have serious groundwater problems.
Cape Cod has typically been an area where people have come to vacation and enjoy a beautiful environment. Juxtaposed against that kind of use is the presence of a large military base.
Their estimate is that between 1 and 6 million gallons of aviation fuel was dumped between the period of 1969 to the mid-1970s. 1 million gallons of aviation fuel has the potential, obviously, for polluting billions and billions of gallons of groundwater.
A toxic plume is actually moving at a foot per day toward Vineyard Sound, and it has already polluted wells that provide drinking water to the town of Falmouth.
We received a letter from the Barnstable County Health Department stating that our on-site well supply is not considered suitable for drinking water purposes, that showering and bathing should be minimized to the extent possible.
We can drink bottled water and we can cook with bottled water and do everything we can to avoid it, but it's impossible to truck in enough water to do everything that you need.
Concerned citizens are organizing and educating their neighbors about groundwater contamination and the elevated cancer rates that now exist.
They spoke up in the newspapers, they spoke up in public meetings, they educated themselves about cancer statistics and how they get reported. They became a formidable force.
Most citizens see the threat as military, but the new commander at the base sees himself as an environmentalist.
Basically got to realize that the environment is as important to our nation as defense. The days when jet noise was the sound of freedom are basically over, and now we're at the position where we've got to realize that what we do with the environment is equally important to the people surrounding us and to the nation, as is the defense posture.
The fact of the matter is that they are also not being very straightforward. They are, I hate to say they're lying to us, but at times they certainly have gone out of their way not to be truthful.
I don't trust me to come up with all the solutions, and I don't trust activist groups to come up with all of the solutions. What takes place out of interaction between two of us is knowledge and compromise, and that's what makes the American system work.
Without the active efforts of the citizens, water problems could have gone unattended. They're working to make sure that neither their health nor their water can be compromised. Sometimes the real water experts are local citizens themselves. When the Department of Energy proposed a nuclear dump site in picturesque Bedford, Virginia, farmer John Byrne challenged DOE's plan.
I think it's time that I start to learn something about geology on my own. So I got me some textbooks, college level, and started reading. And the more I read, the more interested I became. I got this book from the Department of Energy giving the requirements for their repository. I read through the thing and I found that the well data was completely lacking in my mind, and I knew from being a lifelong resident of Bedford County, that born here on this farm, that it was wrong. My answer to that book is contained in this little report that I put together.
John Byrne found that the nuclear dump site could contaminate the local drinking water.
I depend on it for the food, water for my livestock, for my own personal use. We all depend on it.
Because of John Byrne and other citizens, the DOE stopped its effort to put the nuclear dump in Bedford County.
For grassroots America, there's no substitute. It's just not there, and we need to do what we have to protect it and to preserve it.
Good morning. Welcome to New Voices Radio. Today in our studios we have Wilma Warren, an expert on water pollution.
There are about 200,000 rural Virginians who live in households without complete plumbing. That means they either don't have indoor running water, indoor bathrooms, or both.
On the Eastern Shore, Ellen Reed works with Vista to help low-income residents get clean water.
Since we've been doing this, we've helped about 60 homeowners get water problems corrected. We're heading now into Shantytown. This is the area where we found a lot of contaminated water. Here in Shantytown, as in numerous other communities, we have the pump over here, and then over here we have the privy. And the privy is up on a slant, and the water sort of drains downward, and it runs into the top layer of water where the pitcher pump is. In that area of the water, they're getting a lot of fecal bacteria that's coming from the privies.
We have to cook with it, and we have to drink it. And sometimes that water make you feel real bad, sick in the stomach. Because I have drank it, and it made me sick in the stomach.
What we have there, what we are seeing there, is a very high level of fecal coliform in the well water. We did a sampling of about 77 households this summer, and we've found that 80% of those 77 households had fecal coliform levels 16 times state acceptable level. Almost every state now has laws that a house cannot be built, it cannot pass inspection without indoor plumbing. So that if we could ever correct and rehabilitate those existing houses, get water to those communities that don't have it, it's not a problem that's going to keep repeating itself like a lot of other problems involving poverty.
Another problem in rural America is the heavy use of pesticides.
A lot of the people get their main source of water out of the acequias, which is the irrigation ditch. They siphon that water and put it into cisterns and use that as drinking water, and that water has pesticides in it. Serious pesticides have been outlawed in the past. If you're a rural person and you're concerned about your groundwater, the first thing to do is to contact your state office, your state environmental office, and find out what their programs are. They are there to serve you.
Dennis McQuillan works for the state of New Mexico. Like health officials in most states, he is frequently asked by worried citizens to go to their homes and test their water.
Citizens can be of great help to us by reporting suspicious incidents that they see. Many cases of groundwater contamination have been brought to our attention by a citizen calling up and saying, hey, my water smells like gasoline. We will dispatch someone to go out and test it, and 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what it is. A number of cases of illegal dumping have come to our attention by alert citizens seeing something and reporting it to us. We could run tests very easily for pH, conductivity. We can run certain contaminants right out in the field, like nitrates and certain heavy metals. We can sniff with a portable detector for toxic vapors like gasoline or cleaning solvents. We can do that right on the spot. Hi.
Hi.
I've completed the analyses of your water well.
Okay.
Your nitrate level was at 8 parts per million, and the safe limit is 10. That is, it should never exceed 10.
Okay.
So you're below that. It's a little elevated, though.
And if you don't go down to your state legislators and tell them what your problems are with groundwater pollution, then they can't help you. You have to make your problems known. Water is what drives the economy of the Southwest. Without water, land is useless. People are just beginning to realize that water quality is essential to this region. We're faced with toxics, hazardous waste, underground storage, gasoline tanks that are leaking.
This is the water that comes off the mountaintop. We use this for an irrigation system. We also use it for a purpose of drinking water. A lot of this water that comes from the mountain passes through residential area, which have septic tank. We don't know whether people come here with trucks that take out sewage from septic tanks, dump it in this river to dilute it instead of taking it to a sewer treatment plant. So this is some of our concerns that we do address here at the Pueblo San Alfonso.
The Indian pueblos from Santa Fe to Taos have organized a water roundtable. The Pueblo leadership is fighting the threats to their water quality to preserve this precious resource for future generations.
I think it's important for the 8 pueblos to work together because by associating as 8 separate nations, they become stronger. They can speak with a stronger voice to the governor of the state and to the state legislature and to all of the political entities that we have to deal with.
Based on legend, the Rio Grande Valley area represents the water serpent. The serpent in our everyday life is what protects the different resources that we have on our reservations.
Water is the bloodline for any life on this earth. If you don't have water, you don't have no growth. So it's just like the body system. If you don't have no blood, you don't live. If the water is not drinkable, it's not fishable, it's not swimmable, then what if you got a dead world?
To me, next to the threat of nuclear annihilation, the threat of destroying our aquifers in the world is the largest danger to the human race in the future. And it's curable.
We need a national comprehensive groundwater statute, no question about it. We need state implementing statutes, and we need financing and so forth. But groundwater can only be saved by individual people working at the community level to resolve the problem, which is going always to be specific to that community.
We got to protect the drinking water, but it starts at the grassroots level. It's each one of us wanting to protect our own.
You need to be aware of what's important to you and try to defend it the best way you can.
Filling up the spirit.